I'm going to bring the November meeting of the New York City Cemetery Board to order. I'm Mark Patterson representing Walter Mosley.
I'm Stephanie Shulman, representing the Commissioner of Health, Dr. James McDonald.
And I'm Jill Faber, representing Attorney General Letitia James.
All right, thank you.
Wait, Dave says that it will start soon, but not displayed, but he can still hear.
Interesting. I will see if I can figure out why.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, Mark, we're gonna try to do a little troubleshooting here.
You want me to stop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just give it a second. Let's see if we can figure this
I
out.
don't know why it wouldn't have
Because it's
started.
coming through the computer, not through.
I know, it's not just that, Dave's not getting the full experience.
Yeah. I assume they're related.
Mr. Fleming?
Yeah.
Good.
Is Matt DeLuca on, by the way?
We're working through some technical difficulties and we'll resume the meeting momentarily.
Matt DeLuca is on, yes.
Okay, good. So now we just need to figure out how we can get displayed at least on your computer.
I don't know why it would be displayed. Okay. I see your message, Matt. Thank you. Matt, out of curiosity, can you see the images of the board? Oh, Matt can see the images of the board. So this may be a Dave Fleming specific issue. Thank you, Matt.
You want me to resume? Or
He's all set. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. First order of business is to review the minutes of the previous meeting. Does anybody have any corrections or suggestions of the minutes as distributed? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting as distributed. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Next up is our legislative and regulation report from our council.
Report, Mark, thank you. So for a legislative update, we have none, given that the legislature is not in session. For regulations, we're considering minor revisions to the proposed informal regulations. And then the next step after that will be working on a formal notice of proposed rulemaking for the board's consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody have any questions of the council? Okay, thank you, Rob. Next is the division report. Louis Bolshock, the director, do you have anything to?
A couple things. Main thing is staffing. We have a couple of staffing changes. I got Steve at the last meeting. So Lisa Dooley, who's an accountant in our Albany office, has been promoted to associate accountant. And Zakir Ahmed, who's with us in person, is transferred from our Bureau of Fiscal Management to the Division of Cemeteries. And he's a senior accountant in the New York City office. We're working on backfills of 2 senior accountants, 1 investigator. Oh, right. We didn't announce that last time? I'll do it anyway. So Jeff Hardwick, who was our accountant in Syracuse, is now going to be our accountant in Binghamton. So we're working on backfilling an Albany 2 Albany positions, a Syracuse position, and an investigator ultimately in New York City. Carrie McGovern is still not moved to Albany, but we're Leonard Green's retirement date got pushed back. I don't know why. But so once he is actually retired, we can seek to fill his position in New York City and contemplate Carrie moving up here. That's what's going on with that. I'm going to defer on annual report submissions for a second. We're doing our first public-facing session, sort of we call it everything you were dying to know about New York cemeteries. That's going to be on Sunday, December 7th at Greenwood Cemetery. We're looking for other venues to do it. We're hoping to run something based on that also at Hudson Valley Community College over the summer. And we're looking for other cemetery venues or other venues where we can get members of the public, not just cemeterians, to come and give some education. The not so subtle subtext of this is to encourage involvement in and volunteering with cemeteries, although it's not just for that. The last thing I have is there was a cemetery, Churchtown, that I had on the abandonment report. I've learned that they were conveyed, they voted to convey this, and the town voted to accept the conveyance to the town. I want to say that happened back in May, but we didn't have the resolution, we didn't have the town minutes yet. So that's a voluntary conveyance. The board doesn't really have any role there, just so you know. You want to do the statistics?
Annual reports, so we've received this calendar year, 1,434.
Which is more than we received in the past.
I have actually, for this current reporting year, it's 1,271, meaning that there's a couple 150, 200 that are from prior years. So that means our accountants are getting out there trying to get cemetery that have delinquent reports, getting them up to date. So that's good.
Yep. Also bear in mind that some of those are either still on extension for this year.
No, those
They're
wouldn't be on the
sorry.
extension. No.
No, they would know that they didn't get reported.
Oh, right.
Some of them are on rather lengthy extensions and others are on a non-calendar fiscal year, so they may not have been due yet. There are a few that have this weird October date for calendar fiscal year, so we wouldn't get those until January.
But that's the result of our,
Our efforts. So the ones that are for this calendar year, 48% of those were filed online. The total that have been received is about 45%.
Yeah.
This seems to be pretty consistent from year to year. We were hoping to get, more usage of the online form, but I guess it'll just take time.
But it's hovering around 45%,
45,
so that's,
48%.
it's not falling back off.
No.
That's good.
Hopefully it'll get adopted more.
So we can do it's much easier. We are now capturing all the data we get even from paper report, but it's much cleaner from if we
Yeah.
get it from
That's fair.
electronically, because yes, the capture of the data from paper report system does result in errors, hard to read handwriting. And it also results in a lot of staff time cleaning up those errors. So hopefully we can get over 50% on annual electronic submission.
okay?
Vandalism report.
Yep.
So the report was posted. So this year through October, we've only had restoration applications. This month we have two vandalism applications. Those are the first for the year. We've approved about $1.6 million worth of applications, and we have spent out, cash paid out 1.2 approximately.
So we still have $800,000 in cash.
Correct. But we also have a lot of obligations from prior years. And what's in the hopper already.
Again, we've never not paid anything for want of cash. We may have to, it sounds like we may have to manage the cash flow at the end. We'll see.
Any questions of director's report? Okay, thank you, Louis and Alicia, appreciate it. We'll move to the vandalism applications, one dangerous monument and two vandalism applications. We'll start with Canajoharie Falls. Dangerous monument, 67 stones in the amount of $89,836.13.
This is Mike Seelman presenting.
Got Jill and
Yeah,
Mike, go ahead.
Canajoharie Falls Cemetery. It's a small cemetery in the village of Canajoharie. That's in Montgomery County. They submitted an application for repair of 67 hazardous monuments. I went out, looked at the monuments and determined that they did all appear to be hazardous. The most recent one was dated 1980. The cemetery does not have lot owner addresses for these lots. So they ran a legal notice once a week for 3 weeks in the recorder, and they received no response from that ad. So it's our understanding that the cemetery has determined that the lot owners cannot be located. The application included two repair estimates, one from Humphrey Memorials for $89,615 and one from Northeast Cemetery Services for $95,350. Both contractors are going to reset the monuments on new concrete foundations to a depth of 42 inches. They both provide a 10-year warranty. The average cost of the lower is $1,338 per monument. Cemetery is up to date on annual reports and vandalism payments, and I recommend approval in the amount of $89,836.13.
Council?
Thank you, Council.
Okay. Any questions from the board? I'll make a motion to approve the application of Canajoharie Falls in Montgomery County in the amount of $89,836.13, subject to the availability of funds. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Application is approved. We have an application from Oakwood Cemetery in Onondaga County, vandalism application, the amount of $14,500. Presentation.
This is Mike Seelman again. So Oakwood Cemetery, it's a large full-service cemetery located in the city of Syracuse in Onondaga County. They submitted an application for the repair of a single vandalized monument. I visited the cemetery and saw the monument and confirmed that it was down and that the front of the monument is defaced. So included with the application was a Syracuse police report on the incident. There's also a statement from the lot owner that they did not have the means to repair the damage. According to the police report, they've investigated this and they have not made any arrests in this case. Cemetery provided two estimates to replace the monument. One from Barnes Memorials for $14,500. That was the place where the monument was originally purchased. And one from Lutz Memorials for $14,950. So the monuments, these estimates are to replace the monument with an identical monument. And it was stated that the damage was such that they'd have to ship the monument out of state to a place that had a machine that could properly mill the surface, and they determined that it'd be more expensive to actually do that than to simply replace the monument. The cemetery is up to date on annual reports and vandalism payments, and I recommend approval in the amount of $14,500.
Okay, this is an application we had a public comment on.
Back in
last couple
September,
of meetings.
correct.
And so
It is.
as we explained to the applicant, cemetery to apply and also to try to figure out how to secure that. So do you have any questions from the board about this application? Hearing none, I'm going to make a motion to approve the application from Oakwood Cemetery in Onondaga County in the amount of $14,500, subject to the availability of funds to replace a vandalized monument. Do you have, I make the motion to make? Yeah, second. All in favor? Aye. Yes, council, if there's anything you can do.
I have nothing to add.
I take it there wasn't any discussion.
That's good. All right. Next is an application from Mount Lebanon Cemetery in Queens, in the amount of $44,250. Again, another vandalism application. We have a presentation.
Hi, this is Carrie McGovern with the Division of Cemeteries. Mount Lebanon.
A little louder,
Cemetery.
Carrie, if you can.
Oh, can you hear me now?
That's better.
Okay, sorry. Mount Lebanon Cemetery in Queens, New York is seeking funds to replace 30 vandalized monuments, 30-foot stones within the Shlomi Family Society section of the cemetery. The vandalism occurred on or about July 25th, 2024, and the cemetery reported it to the NYPD and to Division Director Polishuk that same day. I visited the cemetery and confirmed the damage. Bronze name plaques were pried from the 30-foot stones, which left the graves both unidentifiable and unsightly. The police report, which is included in this application, estimated the damage to be $77,500. The Family Society was notified by phone and by email, and the cemetery kept in touch with them throughout this process. The vandalized stones dated from 1925 to 1965, and the cemetery had no records indicating the original purchasers of the stones. With no records of the purchasers, they could not file an insurance claim, and the Family Society informed the cemetery they could not pay for the replacement of the stones. After consulting monument companies, it was determined that the most cost-effective way to restore the damage would be to completely replace the stones, instead putting in new granite stones that would be inscribed instead of having nameplates. Mount Lebanon submitted 2 estimates from qualified contractors. The Lewis Monument Company one is for $44,250. The Sprung Monument Company estimate is for $46,800. The cemetery is asking for $44,250 to replace the vandalized footstones. Mount Lebanon Cemetery appears to be up to date on vandalism fund payments and annual reports, and I recommend approval of this application in the amount of $44,250. Thank you.
Thank
For the
you.
record, I do know Mike Lewis, but we are not related.
Hadn't occurred to me. Anybody have any questions of Carrie for the report? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the application from Mount Lebanon Cemetery in Queens, in the amount of $44,250 to repair or replace the stones, subject to availability of funds. I think I did it, but and do I have a second? Any discussion? Any questions from council? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Application is approved. I think that is the end of our vandalism application funds. We have other business to conduct. We have an application from Forest Lawn in Erie County, a land sale.
So this is, this report was prepared by Michael Katina, but I'm Mike Seelman. I'll present it. So Buffalo City Cemetery, it's a large, full-service urban cemetery in Western New York. Specifically, Forest Lawn Cemetery is a member of the Buffalo City Cemetery group. They've requested approval to sell a 79-acre parcel of non-contiguous cemetery land that's in the town of Clarence. It was purchased by the cemetery for use as a cemetery in 1995, and they never developed it for cemetery use. It's currently not zoned for cemetery use. And they've determined that they have enough available spaces in their existing cemetery locations and that they're not going to develop this. So they'd like to sell it to SGC Development Corporation for $1,975,000. They've represented that SGC is not a related party to the Buffalo City Cemetery. They did include a copy of their conflict of interest policy. Director Polishuk and Michael Katina and I visited the cemetery this summer, or excuse me, the land this summer, and noted it was mostly wooded, overgrown, and there's some wetlands in the area that would not be usable for cemetery purposes. Included with the application was updated appraisals that were completed in September 2005, and they value the property at from $1,975,000 to $2 million, and our selling price is $1,975,000. The cemetery is aware that the proceeds minus selling expenses of $37,150 must be deposited into the permanent maintenance fund of Buffalo City Cemetery. Cemetery submitted part one of an environmental assessment form and indicated no environmental impacts by the sale of this property. And the division believes it's an unlisted action and that the sale of this land will benefit Buffalo City Cemetery. And we recommend approval of this application.
Okay, council?
So just the division has recommended that the board adopt really two different resolutions. Just to elaborate a little bit on what Mr. Seelman laid out. So as to the state environmental quality seeker, finding that this land sale is an unlisted action, finding that the sale of land will have no or minimal environmental impact, issuing a negative declaration, and authorizing board chairperson Mark Pattison to sign the draft short EAF Part 3. And as to the land sale, approving the sale of the parcel described in the cemetery's application to SGC Development LLC at the price of $1,975,000. Proceeds going into the permanent maintenance fund minus $37,150 in closing costs. I just wanted to highlight that, authorizing you to sign the part 3 is what the resolution, proposed resolutions.
Two other pieces of background. Number one, just for general information, Forest Lawn bought this land back in the 90s when they anticipated running out of land in the original cemetery, needing extra land. Since then, they've changed strategies and have merged with, taken over, otherwise acquired other local cemeteries, by which they've gained plenty of land, including cemeteries with vacant land in this area. This land is going to be difficult to develop for cemetery purposes, given that most of it's wetlands. So because they've acquired other means of expanding, of having additional space, they just don't need it anymore. The other thing I was going to highlight is that the original application sought permission of the board to use $500,000 of the sale proceeds to buy themselves a new computer system. We saw absolutely no argument that they're modernizing their computers, although probably a good idea, is somehow, what's the magic words in the statute? Is somehow transaction costs of the
Necessary expenses incurred.
necessary expenses incurred in selling the land. So I don't think the board needs specifically to deny that here by saying that the money has to go into PM. And at the 37.5, you're effectively denying that. I just wanted that to be out on the table, lest anyone lose track of that.
Okay, so is it one resolution to approve the sale and one resolution,
The other way around.
one resolution to approve the unlisted action and negative declaration?
Yes, so,
Motion read.
yes,
Right, so you read the motion. I'll accept that first motion as you read, as a motion of mine. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Motion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The land sale, or the seeker is approved. There's a motion to approve the sale of land. Is there anything about that particularly? Do you need to read it, or I just say that?
I already read it, but, approve the land sale as set forth in the proposed resolution on page 3 of the division's packet.
All right, I'll make that motion. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. The application is approved. Next up is Evergreens Cemetery in Kings County, major
Yeah.
renovation.
I'll do that. So Evergreens is it's a large cemetery in Brooklyn. I believe it's 250 acres, which is the limit on, the subsequent limit on cemetery size in Brooklyn. They may have actually come up with it based on that. They have used as their office a historic chapel, essentially. I think it was originally a chapel, and maybe also a caretaker's house from the mid-1800s. It's woefully inadequate space-wise for what they need. There's very little office space. There's very little bathroom space. It's quite the dance to try to just get from one place to another without bumping into people. So they're proposing to build behind the chapel, there's an empty piece of land where there've never been any burials. They're going to expand the chapel with something that looks like a covered walkway, like a covered passage, connecting it to another, what looks like a separate building. It's all going to be one building, which will have a chapel, an additional office, and multi-purpose space in it, to be able to offer indoor chapel services, have space for adequate space for their office, proper storage of records, and have better facilities for the public to come visit. The cost is quite substantial, it's about $29 million, and which is about 10% of the cemetery's general fund. However, they're really looking this is not a money-making project. On the other hand, having the chapel will ultimately bring in some revenue for the cemetery. But they look at this really as nobody's going to come here and we can barely function with what we've got right now. And if we're going to do this only once, let's do it right. So, did I miss anything material before I get to the resolutions?
Sound great, Lewis.
All right, so first resolution is under seeker. I'm just going to flag this, council will flag this for us. I'm just going to mention, because the cemetery is on the National Register of Historic Places, there are special rules under seeker. We don't have to worry about those because of the size of the project, but just mention that if you're building buildings, there's a much lower threshold for something becoming a type 1 action if you're operating in something that's covered in a place that's under the National Register of Historic Places. This one is small enough that we don't have to worry about that. So our seeker resolution, we're asking you to find that the land sale is an unlisted action under seeker. Sorry, not the land sale, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Find that the building is the extension of the building is an unlisted action under seeker. Finding that the extent of the building will have no or minimal environmental impact, issuing negative declaration, and authorizing you again to sign part 3 of a draft part 3 of the short EAF that accompanies the packet. That's resolution number 1. Maybe we should just act on that first, and then I'll read the second one.
I'll place that resolution for the board. In a second.
Second.
Any questions of Lewis? Okay, there being none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Seeker listing is approved. Next, Lewis.
And on the major alteration is approving the application for major alteration in an amount not to exceed $29,527,988, subject to receipt of all required local approvals, all other required approvals, I should say.
You said that's 10% of their.
It's approximately 10% of their unrestricted funds.
Nice. I'll make that motion for the record. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions, council? Yeah. Okay, all in favor? Aye. The application is approved.
Mark, I'm going to ask we go out of order and do Oliveria next.
Okay.
Just because it's quick. Various cemeteries in the town of Shandanken, and its last they had only one remaining board member who died. It is basically inactive. I don't know the last time they had an interment. They're going to run out of funds, I believe, 18 months. Hold on. My recollection, I only wrote this thing through. Just over a year. They have enough unrestricted funds to operate just over a year. Of course, they can't operate because they have no board members. They did have a special lot owners meeting and nobody was willing. A couple of people showed up, but nobody was willing to serve on the board. The town is well aware of this. They actually reached out to us and asked us if they would be able to get abandonment funds. The short answer is potentially yes, but they would have to apply and they would have to, the funds would have to qualify as funds for essentially deferred maintenance of an abandoned cemetery. It's a separate application that would come down the road. But we were in touch with the town. This is one where the only complicating factor here is that we were unable to get access to the cemetery's bank records because the trustee had died, and we had to guesstimate based on the records we had how long it would take until they ran out of money. Frankly, I think we overestimated how much money we have. I suspect they have even less than we know about, which would make the case for abandonment even stronger. Obviously, we like to try to avoid these, but we did everything we could think of, and there's really no what. So what we're asking is that the board confirms the board.
Yes.
Confirm our determination as presented in the board packet.
I'll make that motion.
Wait.
I would just, to the extent that our regulations contemplate giving the town notice at the time at which the board will contemplate this, I don't know if anyone from the town is available or wishes to speak on the proposed.
Like I said, they're aware of this, and I was in touch with the town clerk. Actually, over an email back saying what I just said.
Okay.
Is there anybody on the line that would like to speak to the board?
Anything you see anyone on there?
Okay, so
I do want to repeat, if you would like to address the board, just raise your hand or type in the chat and I can allow you to speak.
wait briefly. All right, so I'll make that motion to confirm the abandonment of Olivia Harris Cemetery in Ulster County to the town of.
Shane Denkin.
Okay. Second. Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The cemetery is confirmed to be abandoned. Last on our agenda is an application from Swan Lake in Sullivan County to file a some corporation. I think we are recommend what our role is, or we approve.
I think you have to approve them.
Approve.
Sorry for that. Council, do you have some summaries you'd like to present? Or Louis?
I want to defer. So Louis has written a lot. I defer to him to go through things first and then pick it up from there if anyone has any questions.
I don't want to belabor what we wrote. So the short of this is that there are a group of people who believe, I think not without justification, that there's demand for additional grave space in the East Asian communities of New York City. And those communities have been looking farther and farther afield, including cemeteries in the parts of Orange County that adjoin Sullivan County. And I believe there is a religious cemetery or combination cemetery columbarium in Sullivan County, catering to the same community. If I remember right, it's in Sullivan. I visited it a few years ago just to see what was going on. This group has where the promoters of this group have used an LLC to acquire land in the town of Liberty. It's a pretty substantial parcel. They're contemplating developing a 140-acre cemetery, although the initial cemetery is only going to be 20 of those acres. There are certain features that they're proposing to do that appeal to the community. Larger lots, as we've seen in a rather interesting complaint we got about 10 years ago, about 8 or 9 years ago. The orientation of burial remains is very important for certain Chinese communities. So they're proposing to use oversized lots so they can angle a casket and vault not parallel to all of the other ones if the feng shui master deems it appropriate to get a different angle there. I claim no expertise in this, but there are various different, I think there are 5 different factors you look at proper feng shui, and orientation of the casket is one of them. The oversized graves allow them to angle them within a grave. Anyway, long story short, the promoters, since the corporation doesn't yet exist, have come to the board seeking approval of a certificate of incorporation. of the issuance by the corporation of land share certificates, of the acquisition by the corporation of this 140-acre parcel, and of major alteration for them to build an office. We have concerns about this whole thing. While there is definitely demand in the East Asian community for additional burial space, this is a huge chunk of land that's going to be expensive to clear, expensive to maintain. And at the end of the day, we're concerned that this may all not work out, and the town of Liberty would be left holding a very expensive deflated bag. We're also concerned that there's a lot of this that, whether or not technically related party actions, seems to be on some level self-dealing. One of the promoters is selling the land to the cemetery. That promoter is also going to be on the board. I assume the promoters are the ones who put together this entire project. Cemeteries are really supposed to be run on a not-for-profit basis for the benefit of their community. This cemetery, quite explicitly, although they will obviously welcome people who want to be buried from Sullivan County, is primarily directed elsewhere. Having said all of that, the stuff that really, two things. Number one, the stuff that really concerns us, we think is not properly before the board right now. Only a cemetery corporation can apply to buy land. Only a cemetery, well, we don't have any role if somebody else other than a cemetery corporation is buying land. But if the cemetery corporation hasn't approved the purchase of land, there's nothing for you guys to weigh in on. Similarly, only a cemetery or corporation can issue land share certificates. Right now, there is no corporation. Similarly, only a cemetery corporation can seek major alteration approval for us. So the stuff where we may have concerns is on some level down the road. The other piece of this is while we've historically looked at viability when a cemetery comes in to incorporate, we've never rejected an application on that basis. And while we wanted to flag our concerns about viability, this certificate of incorporation facially complies with both, section 404 of the not-for-profit corporation law and section 1505, which is the one specific to cemeteries. There's probably another bunch of provisions of the not-for-profit corporation law that get picked up by various cross references therein. Point being, this looks the way a certificate of incorporation for a cemetery is supposed to look. We've run it by our division of corporations. They were okay. They were preliminarily okay with the form. They can't review something for approval or not approval until you guys weighed in. But they gave us some comments, and the cemetery has addressed those comments. The promoters addressed those comments. So what we're recommending right now is A, that the board approve the certificate of incorporation. B, that the board deny all the other applications, land purchase, certificates, major alteration, without prejudice to the newly incorporated corporation after its board has done its duty to the corporation. And assuming it adopts resolutions coming to you guys or tossing you guys for approval of those things down the road. We also, again, wanted to flag some concerns we have about operations, both so for general awareness, but also so the corporation can, when it does come back to us, try to preemptively address those concerns.
Thank you, Louis. Insofar as we've had some discussions with corporations as to how the initial directors should be listed within the certificate, I just wanted to read out our understanding of who the initial proposed incorporators are. They're Zong Young Lin, Kramer Stiff, William J. Shepard Esquire, Ming Lin, and Kathy Brandis. We're just trying to make sure that those are reflected in the certificate of incorporation in a way that's acceptable for filing with the Division of Corporations.
And just for your background, so the reason we're flagging this is that corporations had an issue with incorporating an attachment to the certificate of incorporation, listing them. We think that the promoters got it right in the document we're putting before the board, but if they want it done another way, that shouldn't affect your approval, because you're aware of that. The other thing is the first Lim or Lynn?
I see Lynn.
Lynn, the first Lynn is the individual I mentioned who is one of the members of the LLC that currently owns the land. I have a representation from council that none of the other people on the initial board have any interest in the LLC. And the Lynns are not related.
I've also drafted a proposed resolution. When filing with the Division of Corporations, they want to see the Division of Cemeteries approval appended or attached to the proposed certificate. So I drafted something towards it and also addressing the division's recommendation to reject without prejudice the other application. I'm happy to read that. I'm happy to respond to any questions.
I know, well, first of all, do you guys have any questions yet? Jill? Did you lose Jill?
She's still there. I think she's muted.
Okay. Well, she'd unmute if she had questions.
Sorry,
so-
I was, no, I don't have any, sorry.
Okay, so I know counsel from the promoters is on meeting and wants to address the board. I guess, does it make sense, and I'll ask him this too. Does it make sense for us to read the proposed resolution first and then in case he has concerns about that as well? Or do we want to hear from you now? I'm fine either way. I want to give them ample opportunity.
Why don't we just invite him to address the board?
What is the promoter? Or what is the council?
Matt DeLuca.
Mr. Luca?
I
Oh, I'm sorry.
have to allow them to talk. Sorry. Mr. DeLuca, I've added you as a panelist. You should be able to unmute yourself at will.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Perfect. Yeah, so I.
A little louder if you can. I don't know.
yeah, we have this very loud ventilation going in the background. It makes it hard for us to hear.
Okay, I will yell at my computer. Let me know if you can hear me. So I've read obviously what Lewis submitted to the board. I generally agree with his analysis in the logistical sense of you have to improve incorporation first, and then the board of the newly formed entity has to vote to do these steps and then bring it back to the cemetery board to approve. So I think the logistics that he's proposed make a lot of sense, and I don't have any issue with that. I think it also is beneficial insofar as there's a related party transaction element of this, that a board of directors that has non-interested directors will be able to vote on and address those concerns to some degree. As far as the incorporation itself, I don't anticipate having any issues with whatever resolution's been prepared. And I have spoken with the Division of Corporations as well, and they basically told me that you guys have to review the certificate, that they don't really do it or they don't know. I don't know who's correct in that, and that's really something that I think Department of State is going to have to figure out amongst its divisions. So I defer to you guys in terms of how that process should go and who processes that paperwork. Obviously, the remainder of the application is presumably going to be denied without prejudice, and we're going to come back and give more information on it. I do want to briefly address it just to push back a little bit on some of the comments that the division had, because obviously we do not share all of the concerns about business viability and some of the other things that Lewis just spoke about. I don't know if you want to handle the incorporation issue first and get that resolution passed, and then I'll just briefly address that, or if you'd like me to sort of address it now and just do it all in one shot.
You can do it all in one shot. It's irrelevant to what's before us, but we're glad to hear from you.
Fair enough. So, I'm somewhat comforted that Lewis's description of sort of the demand for the market and the fact that there is a market for this differs a little bit from the written submission he gave, and that there's more of an acknowledgement that it's out there, which seems to be pretty firmly discounted in the written recommendation that went to the board. We are, much like Lewis, I do not profess to be an expert in feng shui or what features make this a attractive location, but I'm told that it is, this is the equivalent of beachfront property for the Chinese community in terms of burial spaces. There's a hill, it's on an angle of at least 20 degrees, it overlooks a lake. whatever the feng shui master said was very positive. This was chosen for a very specific reason. There's a very specific community, mostly in Chinatown, Brooklyn, Queens, that has a very strong demand for this particular type of property and this style of burial. It's going to be a staff that largely speaks Mandarin, is tied into the community, that will be able to reach and market and sell in this community to a degree that other nearby cemeteries can't. I also was a little concerned with the comparators that are cited in the recommendation. I think the closest comparator for what we are proposing is really Heaven Dao Temple, which is a religious cemetery about 20 minutes away. My understanding is they are almost sold out, and they are another primarily Chinese language cemetery that caters to this community specifically. So there has been a lot of demand for this. We know there is. Mr. Stiff, who is going to be one of the board members and the general manager of the cemetery, sort of get it up and running, has opened sections and run them in similar cemeteries targeting this community. And when we come back, I'm going to hopefully have sales data and pricing and other information from those projects that we can use as comparators in terms of what we're looking and showing the viability of the project in terms of projected sales. I'd also like to note that they have continued to move forward with preparing the site to be used as a cemetery. So I am told that there are already 15 acres that have been cleared, trees removed, and the price of doing that was, I believe, a little under $200,000. So I don't know what the Putnam County project that's referenced in this recommendation was, but that pricing does not seem to be anywhere in the ballpark of what is realistic for what we're proposing and what's already been done. So it's kind of hard for me to rebut references to a project I'm not familiar with. But, sort of the takeaway is we have real concerns about the way that the viability of the project has been characterized. And, we will more substantively address that when we come back. But I do want to raise that we have those concerns. Obviously, the issue of certificates, I know, is always a concern with the board. So much of it is statutory that there's a lot about it that our hands are kind of tied in terms of the terms of the certificates, in terms of rates and voting rights. I will say that the proposed certificates we wrote were drafted such that paying off the certificate is not optional. It is a mandatory process at the end of every calendar month. A percentage of sales goes directly into an account, and those funds are used to pay off however many certificates they can afford to sequentially. It's a mandatory process. There's no, method by which the board could choose not to pay the certificates for the interested directors to retain control. So I will say, as a practical matter, there's not really a huge demand for people to serve on the boards of these cemeteries. So even if once the certificates are gone, I don't anticipate there being huge changes. It's possible, but I don't think that's realistically a major concern. And again, our town approvals, we've gotten the special use permit from the zoning board. They've approved it. It's, I think, only for up to 30 acres initially. And then we have to go back and get approval if we want to develop an additional 30 for each increment. So there will be a staggered development period. So obviously there's a lot more I could say about the substance of the application. A lot of it's not going to be before you now, but I did want to sort of push back on the framing a little bit of what our vision of this project and sort of the experience and basis for where our numbers are coming from and what we imagine this to be in the long term. So I don't know if you have questions, or we'll wait till we come back in a couple months, but that's sort of where we are.
Thank you for the information. Council, can you put the resolution into the record?
Okay. Whereas a group of individuals seek to incorporate a not-for-profit cemetery under the name Swan Lake Cemetery Association, Inc., purchase real property, issue certificates of indebtedness, and construct buildings. And whereas not-for-profit corporation law sections 404E and 1505 require the New York State Cemetery Board's approval of a proposed certificate of incorporation for a not-for-profit cemetery, except those within the exclusionary provisions of not-for-profit corporation law section 1503. And whereas only cemetery corporations may apply to the cemetery board for approval to purchase real property, issue certificates of indebtedness, and construct buildings. Now therefore be it resolved that the cemetery board approves the certificate of incorporation for the Swan Lake Cemetery Association, Inc. in the form annexed to this resolution pursuant to not-for-profit corporation law sections 404E and 1505, subject to filing such certificate of incorporation with the Department of State, Division of Corporations, and the Office of the Sullivan County Clerk. The Cemetery Board rejects without prejudice all other outstanding applications from the group of individuals seeking to incorporate a not-for-profit cemetery under the name Swan Lake Cemetery Association, Inc., because the applications were not made by a cemetery corporation.
I'll make that motion. Any, for a second? Any other discussion or questions? on The matter? All in favor of the approving the articles of incorporation as this reads and denying the other applications? All in favor? Aye. Aye. The articles of incorporation are approved and the other matters are rejected until further information presented. I think that concludes our business.
So there's something I forgot to mention, it's sort of good in welfare about evergreens. I had anticipated attending, that looks like I can't. I'm working on seeing if the division can be represented. Evergreen Cemetery, the one that just we approved the big building on, has a program where they train veterans. I think it's landscaping, where they get them, they bring them in, they train them. They're having when Secretary Mosley visited the cemetery where he happens to have relatives, the veterans happened to be there that day. He got to meet them and learn about the program, and it seems to be a fantastic program. They're having a graduation ceremony from that program tomorrow, which again, I hope division will be able to be represented at. So I wanted to just recognize A, that that's out there, and B, we keep hearing anecdotally that it's impossible for it's very difficult for cemeteries to find, and for ones that use independent contractors, for contractors to find landscapers. And this program is obviously a great way of building a reserve of people to who can in turn work, and it's a win-win-win for everyone. So I just wanted to highlight that because it's happening.
Evergreen, we applaud. Yes. I applaud their.
Yeah, there are a couple, there's a somewhat similar program at Woodlawn and a couple other cemeteries do where they take teenagers and they train them in landscaping and stonemasonry, both of which are places where it's hard to find people, especially stonemasonry.
That's great. That's exciting news, and congratulations to the veterans for graduating from the program. Thank you, Louis. We usually invite people to address the board on other matters. Is there anyone online who would like to address the board on anything relevant to the board's authorities?
Once again, please type in chat or raise your hand. Sorry, or use the raise hand function so I can unmute you. Oh, there you are.
Hello.
Good to go. Hello.
Hello,
Please.
Chris Converse here with the Buffalo City Cemetery.
Hi, Chris.
Cemetery. Hello,
Hi, Julie.
Louis. How are you?
Julie Snyder with Buffalo City Cemetery.
Loud as you can. We're having a little trouble with the audio.
Julie Snyder and Chris Converse with Buffalo City Cemetery. Forest Lawn in Western New York. Just wanted to thank the board for their approval of the land sale.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Is there anyone else online that wants to address the board? Good seeing you guys. There being none, is there anybody here in the room who'd like to address the board? You're breaking trust in it.
Also.
All right, so no other public comment. Our next cemetery board meeting is scheduled for December 9th.
The 11th, actually, we had to move it to the 11th. 9th would be the normal time we would meet, but we've had to move it to the 11th because there's no meeting available.
Okay. Next cemetery board meeting is scheduled for December 11th at 10:30. Theoretically in,
I think it's actually upstairs.
executive reception.
You want me to double check? I can double check that in 1 second.
So we'll post the,
Sure, but let me just, it's here. It's here.
okay, in 5:05, if you plan on attending. I think that's all the business before us. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Seconded, all in favor, meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Yeah.
Start.
Cool.